that assessments serve as tools for learning rather than barriers. He has been actively involved in projects that integrate accountability, equity, and inclusivity into assessment frameworks, thereby contributing to reforms in both school and higher education. Through his research and publications, Dr. Singh has consistently highlighted the importance of developing learner-centered evaluation methods that empower students while upholding academic standards. So, without further ado, Professor Singh. Yes.
Yeah. So thank you, Singh. Really, I'm very honored to be here. As exactly, it's this topic is very much close to my heart. And when I speak on inclusive education, so inclusive education is the ultimate reality. Education, as we know, shapes the society, shapes our mind, shapes the international understanding. So basically, I'll be starting with the experience where, because when I was at Dr. Shakuntala Mishra National Rehabilitation University, it's the only, I feel that it's in true sense, it's a very inclusive university that deals with inclusive higher education. So that university is in Uttar Pradesh, and it is situated particularly in Lucknow, and that university is dealing with, particularly with 50% students are students with special needs, particularly with hearing impairment, with visually challenged, with orthopedically handicapped, with cerebral palsy. And apart from that, many intersectionality. It may be in the term of socioeconomic status, caste, religion, minority, and many more intersectionality on that. So as we all know that in India is a very multicultural, very multilingual nation. And when we say nation, because I do differ in the connotation of nation and Rashtra, basically because nation is having very Western connotation. When we say that Germany is a nation, and when we say that India is a nation, then I do differ in that connotation. Because India is a Rashtra, and Rashtra is a very cultural connotation. And when we say that nation, and then nation, does it mean regarding that uniculturalism, unilingualism, and many more that, uniformity. But India, country like India, which is a very vast in the sense, because we are having many cultural flavor, many socioeconomic status hierarchies. And when you'll be reading the National Curricular Framework and of course the National Education Policy 2020, it's a very visionary document when we talk about. Then you'll find that the chapter 6 particularly is dedicated to inclusive education. Because inclusive education is the need of our nation, that is our Rashtra basically, because we are living in the very multilingual, very multicultural and having very socio-cultural diversity. So this is what when we talk about at the elementary level, or the primary level, or the middle level, or the higher secondary level, and the higher education, higher secondary level, and more than that, suppose the tertiary level. So then you'll find the different gaps are there. So there is schooling pattern, because I am sharing with, because just I was talking with Professor Justin, and I was really very elated to find his perspective, what he is dealing in Germany, and just what kind of modalities are there, what kind of frameworks are there, and because India must be the only lab of practicing inclusion, because India is a country where you will find that in a single classroom, many diversities are there. Just the visually challenged students as well as hearing impaired students, whereas very marginalized in the term of socioeconomic status. And for a teacher, it's very difficult to deal with. So teacher becomes very handicapped. When you say that traditionally, when in our teacher training program, the teacher training program is not very much efficient dealing with how to cater and how to handle with those diversity in the class. So the teacher training program doesn't, make us very much empowered to deal with, because the reality is entirely different, and the theoretical domain and dimensions entirely different. There is a huge gap between the theory and the practice. So when you become a professor, when you become a teacher, and when you just go to the classroom, then you will find entirely handicapped, because you cannot deal with the very much languages. Because now at present I am in University of Delhi, and there is a national program of assessment and evaluation, that is the CUET-PZ program and CUET-UZ program, and that CUET-UZ and CUET-PZ makes the classroom of University of Delhi very diversified, because student from Kerala, student from Northeast, student from western part of the students from the abroad, from Sri Lanka and the African countries, and more Korean and Japanese. So in true sense, if you'll find that in a classroom, so as a teacher, you have to deal with many concerns here. So when the teacher training program is not very much capable, if the teacher training program, particularly the pre-service program, is not very much capable to deal with that, so it's a very huge concern should be as a nation, because nation building, because the destiny of India or the destiny of the world is being shaped in his classroom. And without dealing with that diversity, it's very difficult to make an inclusive citizen. Inclusive, having the person having international, very much international, inclusive understanding. Because we do believe in Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that is the Sanskrit slogan. And but in just you'll go to the classroom, then we do feel just we cannot give the appropriate intervention to our students. So this is what, when we talk about the pedagogical intervention, so pedagogical interventions and particularly the assessment and evaluation, because as all we know that when we want to make inclusive citizen, classrooms should be inclusive. When we say that inclusive education, of course, the evaluation should be very much inclusive. But just I am sharing a concern of hearing impaired students. So just I have given a traditional model of assessment to complete their assignment and to complete their annual examination and semester ending examination. So the students with hearing impairment, they raise their voices against that conventional pattern of examination, and they just narrated, just you take my experience, just you take my perspective, because if I am very much comfortable in Indian Sign Language, then why you are not taking my examination and my assessment in that Indian Sign Language? So you are showcasing my disability. You are not, showcasing my ability. Because in that way, I could understand it, just because we are raising the slogan of inclusive education, but we are not, doing justice with inclusive evaluation. So there is a huge gap of inclusive education and inclusive, because these are the buzzwords. Everybody is buzzing about that, inclusive education, and inclusive evaluation, in fact. But we are not practicing it, because in India particularly, the higher regulatory bodies, the University Grants Commission and Rehabilitation Council of India, the National Council for Teacher Education, and in the technical education is monitored by AICTE. So just you will find the examination guidelines even. If you will find the assessment guidelines, you will hardly find that these guidelines are very much inclusive. Because all we know that if the school is segregated, college is segregated, classroom is segregated, then of course that mind would be segregated. And if the mind would be segregated, then it would be really very injustice to say that we are promoting inclusivity through our practices. So this is very important, and of course the principle of inclusive education is accessibility. And I am just talking about accessibility. Accessibility doesn't mean only the physical accessibility. Here, the social accessibility, the psychological accessibility. In the previous, the lecture and session, just we have seen that all psychological correlates of pedagogy and the psychological correlates of dealing with the students with their special needs. So accessibility, just only, particularly if you see the very connotation of accessibility, then at a very superficial level, we understand that accessibility is only concerned with the physical accessibility. Just you make a ramp, just you develop a handrails, and just you install elevators, and then work is done. But in classroom, just if you'll find that the linguistic diversity cannot be catered with the physical accessibility. Linguistic diversity could be only catered through linguistic diversity, and it could be only, bridge the gap between the one language to another, and another language to third language, and fourth language, and fifth language, whatever the linguistic barriers are there. So the teachers must be capable. In that way, the technology may play a very much wonderful role in that, because no teacher can be multilingual. So here, the technological intervention must be there, and that intervention would be capable of, realizing the inclusive education campaign very successful. So national education policy is very much focused on, because it would be not, it is having the implication of only for India. So I was discussing to Dustin even, India is the best model of inclusive education, because the diversity we are dealing with, the complexity we are dealing with. So the socio-cultural fabric of Germany and the socio-cultural fabric of India is entirely different. If you go to Bihar, if you go to Uttar Pradesh, if you go to Kerala, if you go to the capital town of any state and the capital town of even the India, so definitely you'll find very much diversity. So your research insight and your technological intervention even, definitely it would be very much helpful to us even, and what we would be researching and we will be communicating through the world, then definitely that model would be fit for the rest of the world. But where the country is unilingual, the country is dealing with not many more languages. So there the inclusive model will be entirely different. So the country, India, is it will be a good collaboration between Germany and a good collaboration between India and Indian universities. So we will be giving you the social lab event. So to understand the real connotation of inclusivity. So you will be giving us the research expertise in terms of the technological intervention, your technological advancement, your research methodological advancement, but we would be giving you the good lab to understand the inclusivity, particularly because still we are struggling for literacy. We are still struggling. After 76 years of independence, we are struggling for literacy, because many more campaigns we have run, even the Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan and Rashtriya Madhyamik Shiksha Abhiyan and Rashtriya Uchchatar Shiksha Abhiyan, but still we are struggling for, because earlier we copied the educational policies of the Western world, because we didn't understand even what is the need of the India. What is the need of the, what is the socio-cultural fabric of India? Because education should be the function of, the society. Education should be the function of social institution. And if we are not able to understand the very much dynamics of social institution, we cannot, simply copy and paste of US educational policy and UK educational policy and African educational policy. So we have to develop our own educational policy, and it is the first time here. So national education policy is very much dealing with that. So chapter 6 is dedicated for equitable and inclusive education learning for all. First time, just the paradigm shift is there. Earlier we were, our sole campaign was education for all, but now it is learning for all. There is a difference between that. If we are saying that education for all, it means institution is, liable to make that campaign very much successful. But when we are saying that the learning for all means what? It is more accountable, it is more transparent, it is more accessible, it is more, learner would be playing a very active role in that. So this is the problem we are dealing with. So definitely that inclusivity when in terms of the very much dimensions what we are dealing with, to just accessibility and fairness. So fairness is one of the chief and one of the significant constituent of inclusive education. So when we are not fair enough towards learner, then definitely we cannot promote inclusivity. We cannot very much talk about inclusive education. So knowingly, unknowingly, we practice segregation. Knowingly, unknowingly, we practice, because being a teacher, we practice in the name of language, in the name of socioeconomic status, in the name of status, in the name of even the status of the university. So in the name of the status of the school even. So we are dealing with sometimes segregated practices even. So that segregation must be diluted. And that's why UNESCO report in 2022, and it's a very wonderful report, and I admire that report in a very greater way. So reimagining our futures together. Sahle-Work Zewde, Ethiopian president, and she is the president of that, and she is the chairperson of that committee. And the title of that commission was Reimagining Our Futures Together, and a new social contract for education. So education should be a new contract, because and that contract must be, we all stakeholders must be accountable for that. So first of all, we have to understand what kind of barriers, knowingly, unknowingly, we are creating. So if we are a teacher and if I belong to a certain culture, then definitely knowingly, unknowingly, we impose that culture to the student, and that students are definitely, they feel very handicapped, they feel very, not very much comfortable in that. And particularly India, 70% they are the first generation learner. So first generation learner, to deal with that first generation learner is entirely different, because the Germany, because you might have dealing with the third generation learner or the fourth generation learner and the fifth generation learner. But in India, we are 70% in a classroom situation. When I go to and when I ask what your parents are, how much they are educated, then they say, no, I am the first generation learner. So of course, the first generation learner, they are having many more challenges, because they perceive, they visualize the university system and higher education system as just like a Eiffel Tower. So just you go and you visit, and you cannot get connected with those dynamics. So in India, because when we talk about the inclusive education, then we must think about just we are dealing with the first generation learner. 70% we are dealing with the first generation learner, and their model of inclusivity will be entirely different in terms of the Western model. So that model must be, and that fairness must be there from the policy framework, from the policy execution, and from the policy accountability. Because when we study the program impact, so after implementation of this policy, 5 years, just it is 2025, and just we had that policy in 2020. So in 5 years, just we have done something new work in that, to reconfigure our educational institution. But still, just if you go to the Indian classroom situation and the model of school and the model of higher education, then you still find that is unknowingly they are practicing a segregated model of education. In true sense, that is not inclusive education. In terms of socioeconomic status, in terms of caste, in terms of gender, in terms of minority, in terms of all sociocultural considerations you will find. So definitely that pedagogical interventions must be taken into consideration, because one teacher cannot teach all. One teacher cannot capture the diversified needs of the all students. So the role of the teacher, rather the mono teaching model to group teaching model, the team teaching model, would be the one of the wonderful connotation of that. So when, just because in India, just we are practicing particularly, and it might be because I don't know the status of Germany, what is the classroom situation and what is the status and positionality of the teachers, particularly in Germany and the Western world. So particularly, but in India, just I find that if I have to deal with the very much because we have to deal with the hearing impaired student and visually challenged student and the social lower status of the socio-economic status having the students. So if I have to deal with, then definitely we should have that connotation, and we have to define the positionality of the teachers. And in one classroom, at least 2 or 3 teachers should be there in the role of team teaching, in the collaborative teaching, in the cooperative teaching. So that cooperative teaching, because the students do understand, if the teacher is one and teacher cannot collaborate with other teachers, then how do I collaborate? So that collaboration in the term of positionality, collaboration in the terms of the status of the teacher, and the functioning of the teacher, and the position of the teacher, that should be there. So team teaching, collaborative teaching, and that would address the inclusivity, the problem and challenges, particularly that occurs particularly in Indian classroom situation. That would be. So I think that the model, and usually we talk about that pedagogical devices and pedagogical tools in terms of universal design, the design which fits to all, and there should not be very much adaptation and modification, and but that the design should be capable of dealing with all diversified needs of the student. But to realize and to have that connotation of universal design and to practice it in real situation, it is really very difficult to design in that way. So because we are not having a very much trained teacher to deal with the inclusivity in the Indian classroom situation. So that training in universal design, particularly the curricular development, because sometimes we do find that curricular designing and curricular development is the most easiest task, but it is not like that. So curricular designing, curricular development, to have the all components of inclusivity and diversity, so it needs time. At least 6 to 7 months you need to have to develop that curriculum. But overnight we do develop the curriculum, and in that way we cannot find, even just you analyze the curricular status of the Indian classroom situation or the Indian universities, you will find that apart from and irrespective of the linguistic diversity, you will find that each and every university has uploaded its curriculum in English. So, and because our learners, they are not able to understand, basically the 70% students, they are not able to understand the very much connotation what is written in that curriculum. So if that linguistic barriers are there, and that systemic barriers that hampers the very goal of inclusivity. So in terms of language, in terms of even that curricular components, even so each and every student, they are having the same curriculum, and but when you but because if your classroom is diversified, if your socio-cultural fabric is very much diversified, then that diversity must be seen in your curriculum. Because if you just study that curriculum, then you never find that kind of diversity is reflected in that curriculum. So education starts from curriculum, and that curriculum must be the reflection of all the aspiration of all stakeholders. So if that aspirations are not reflecting in that curriculum, then definitely we cannot say that that inclusivity campaign has been started already. So curriculum and that curricular transaction is a very challenging task even. So in 9 years in Dr. Shakuntala Mishra National Rehabilitation University, when I when it was the first day of mine in that university, then I found very much handicapped because I didn't know the basic sign language. I didn't know the tactile model of learning even, and in that way, and many more students, because I have been educated from Banaras University, their model of teacher training was entirely different. And when I came to that university, then I find that the all previous trainings was completely in vain. And then I have to learn more and more, and because our students have been my guru even in that sense, because they made us learn how you would be dealing with us, and that should be your language, that should be your gesture, that should be your, the sense of empathy, that would be your sense of tolerance. So in that way, we found that the teachers should be a learner even, particularly in the classroom situation, because that diversity, because there are a lot of permutation and combination of diversity. You never know if this is the exact combination of diversity would be there in your classroom. Because if you are having the computational skills, if you are able to understand the permutation and combination of that diversity, then you would be dealing with all challenges, all issues, whatever it is occurring in classroom situation. So this is very important, and of course the pedagogical interventions, it is the prime consideration, it is the prime factor in inclusive education. And of course pedagogical intervention starts with inclusive evaluation, and because we are not very much trained in inclusive evaluation. If you find that the model of evaluation in the pre-phase of teaching, or the interactive phase of teaching, or the post-phase of teaching, because as a teacher we have to understand the very much a role in the pre-phase of teaching, or interactive phase of teaching, and the post-phase of teaching. So because teaching is a very complex phenomenon. So teaching is an art and learning is in science. So just because being a scientist, because we have to understand the background of the learner. So if we are not knowing the background of the learner, we cannot perceive the exact figure of the learner. So that's why that psychological intervention and that the psychological background of the learner, we have to understand, and in that previous session we have understand. So neurodiversity and each and every, the basic understanding of neurodiversity should be there for all teachers. And then only we would be able to handle that challenges posed by that neurodiversified situation. So this is a very important part of aspects. And of course, just when we say that, the interactive phase of evaluation, because the pre-phase, so while making the lesson plan, first of all you have to see your classroom situation. You have to identify the learner's background, and then you have to incorporate, you have to make all kind of flexibility in your lesson plan. And the other lesson plan, it must be a learning plan basically. In your learning plan, that diversity must be incorporated, and that as per that your learning plan, when you would be executing it, then that in that execution, that sensitivity should be there. So that model of universal design of assessment, universal design of evaluation, and of course differentiated assessment. Just we follow one model of assessment to everyone. That doesn't work. Because in terms of language, we have to make diversified. In terms of the content, we have to make diversified. Because all we know that if we are saying that diversity is there in our classroom, then the content of the assessment should be differentiated. So that the traditional model of evaluation, just it showcases the disability of the student, not they are differently able, that we cannot even proclaim it. It would be the case of differently abled. It means what? Just we are showcasing the disability of the student. We are not showcasing their super ability of the student. Because when we are just accommodating our students, then just I have seen in our university, so our visually challenged students, they were the gold medalists. They in first time they have qualified the national level examinations. So only due to the classroom ambience, only due to the role of the teacher, only due to the role of the peers. Even all the peers, even we have just the model of teaching even. So one students with special needs and one students with the average needs. That pairing should be there, because then they would be learning to each other even. So they would be having the sensitivity, they would be having the accountability they would be having, because they would be understanding that we are the part and parcel of the society, and the classroom situation and the real society have very much resemblance. Because if we would be not creating the resemblance of the real society and the classroom society, then definitely, directly, knowingly, unknowingly, we would be segregating, and we would be developing the segregating mindset even. So, just the model of a school in India, particularly if you will see in the name of gender, we have discriminated the school. We have segregated the school. This is the school for girls. These are the school for boys. And in many schools, they are, only for the visually challenged. Just like if you go to the Uttar Pradesh, then you'll find that the school for visually challenged, that is Sparsh, and for hearing impaired, that is a segregated school, that is a Sanket school, and for intellectually and developmentally disabled people, they are having Mamta and Prayas. Many more schools are there, and they are being run on the segregated landscape. And when they come to higher education in a very inclusive setup, then we find that there is a clear-cut differentiation. There is clear-cut, even their attitude is different, because they are saying just 20 years just we were in that school, and our mindset is completely segregated, and we are not able to recognize even the very parts of society. You are saying we are very empathetic, we are very sympathetic, and but the school system, that they promoted the segregated mindset. And after 18 years, all we know that psychologically our neuroplasticity has gone basically. So that neuroplasticity, there is a age specific relation of neuroplasticity and your age even. So if attitude is being developed in that kind of setup, segregated setup, then it would be very much unfair to talk about the inclusivity. So in national education policy, it is well said that the whole education system should be reconfigured. That reconfiguration is required, and that reconfiguration in terms of school structure and the structure of higher education even, and how to earmark that basically the special needs student even, for making provisions for their funding even, because it is not having the concern of only the psychological concerns and sociological concerns, but basically it is also it should be and it must have that economic concern even, because that economical viability, that financial viability is there to realize and to make the practice of inclusive education. So this is in that way, when we see that the screening model, the assessment model, the measurement model, and the evaluation model, then definitely we find that just we are practicing segregated practices when we are practicing it. So in the context of complete and the whole world even, so that address and that diversity must be catered, because without inclusion, without inclusivity, and without practicing that model even, we cannot say that that the globe is inclusive, that our society is inclusive, our classroom is inclusive. So this is very important, and for that we have to make a lot of accommodations, because provide accommodations for students with disabilities and such as extra time and many more technological interventions. And we must be, even the University Grants Commission like and the higher education regulatory bodies must take into cognizance of that, how to make assessment process more inclusive. So that assessment and examination must be inclusive. Without inclusive examination, without inclusive assessment, we cannot practice inclusive education. It would be very unfair to say that we are running the campaign of inclusive education in that way. And in that way, then we would be having the very improved student outcome, and that when we practice segregation knowingly, unknowingly, then if you will be studying the mental status of the student, their mental status is really, and they feel that this whole system is making us fail. So that sensitivity in policy making, that sensitivity in policy execution, that sensitivity in teachers' attitude, that sensitivity in the peers, co-peers, that segment of that classroom. So this is very much important, and of course in that way we would be promoting, and we would be running a very successful campaign of inclusive education, because all we know that we need inclusive society. We need inclusive law. We need basically inclusive, and for that, if we do need inclusive society, inclusive community, inclusive nation, inclusive globe, then of course that campaign must be started in that inclusive classroom situation. And that classroom situation only would bring that kind of revolution, and then we would be able to sit together, and that collaboration, that collectiveness, that accountability, that fairness, all these are the very higher order values. But to practice them, it is very difficult, because we are not meant for that, because we are not being trained in that values framework. So it is I am very honored to find this opportunity to share my perspective here. And of course, because Germany is known for a good research, and because that credibility in the field of research, because basically we do honor that. And of course, we do seek that and wonderful collaboration between the universities of Germany and the universities of India to find a very, feasible solution of promoting inclusive education and inclusive pedagogy and inclusive assessment. Because for that we need technological collaboration. We need that minds should be collaborated, minds should be together, and in that way only we can promote and we can develop a good globe even in that way. So because this university, particularly the Jamia Millia University and University of Cologne and the University of Edinburgh and the Max Planck Institute, and so all they are doing a very wonderful work to make this campaign a very global campaign. And I think that need to be addressed, and that the all concerns and issues and problems, particularly how to improve the pedagogy, how to improve, particularly in a very complex classroom situation, because it would require a new kind of paradigm of research, because that mixed paradigm and paradigm from the quantitative one, the subjectivity, and the paradigm of objectivity, and the all paradigm must be together, and it cannot be resolved through the monodisciplinary perspective of research. It must be from interdisciplinary, it must be from multidisciplinary, and it must be from transdisciplinary. So when we talk about the transdisciplinary model of research, then the discipline loses its identity, but it solves the all problems. So to solve this problem, we have to have a very togetherness spirit and the collaborative spirit, and in that way this platform is a very wonderful platform to bring all minds together and to resolve this wonderful issue, and this is the need of the hour. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. And of course, if you have any query, question, and to share your perspective, because that collective perspective would be resolving the issues of inclusivity. So you are welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Singh. That was a very inspiring talk. I felt a lot of connection between what I've been talking about these days and yours. We have a